Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on the subject of internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and today with me, I have the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young, and Internet Marketing Specialist, Dennis McCarthy. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Pleasure to be here, as usual.
How you doing, Glenn?
Doing wonderful. Well, let's get down to it, and let's talk about using a website to generate sales leads. Tom, I guess if you can start, tell us what a website needs to produce sales leads.
Well, it's important to realize that most websites are actually in business to generate sales leads, to generate that kind of interest. We tend to get focused a little bit too much on the e-commerce side of things, but really websites are marketing tools, and as a marketing tool, like any good marketing department, you're trying to generate leads. So I think it's important to realize that this is a key part of internet marketing, and many companies need to be doing this. In fact, even e-commerce websites can generate sales leads. And this is truth because most companies and most of the goods and services sold cannot really be effectively sold online. There's really kind of small niches of things that are sold well online. There's other things that are sold online but not always easily and not always well. And then there's vast majorities of goods and services that you could never sell on the internet. But, most websites are still really just online brochures, and they're not really developing strategies to actively produce sales leads.
Well, wasn't that the original plan of having a website, is be able to take your website and actually get business from it or generate business?
Absolutely. And to do that, you need to have a strategy. And so what we've done is we've identified 7 areas that we think are going to be critical to drawing leads from your website. Some of these are fundamental usability things, and some of these areas are pretty much unique to how you develop a lead. And we're going to get into more detail. But let me give you the 7 areas, and then we'll discuss them. The first thing is you got to draw qualified traffic, the kind of traffic that you want to see on the website, qualified traffic. Once the traffic comes in, you need to have an overall professional, high-quality design. People make up their impressions of a site in a few seconds, and if it's not professional looking, they're gone. You need to have then a consistent message and branding on your website that ties into any other kind of marketing that you're seeing, because qualified traffic is going to come from a variety of sources, not just search engines and not just from the web. They're going to see an ad or a radio spot or whatever and come into your website. Number 4, the site needs to be very well organized in its usability and in its navigation, because immediately once people come in, they say, yeah, the site looks professional, I want to look more. They go to navigation and they look for the organization of the site to try to find what they're looking for. Number 5, the content or photos or any kind of graphics or media then needs to build on that hot button. You have to have an understanding of why they came into the site. The content has to build that interest or that excitement about being on the site. 6 then would be the content's offer or the actual messaging of the content that would move people then into a sales funnel or some type of sales process on the website. So, for example, your site would have a preferred path that the visitor would take to end up as a conversion or as a sales lead. And then 7, and this is probably the most important of all, and a lot of times is ignored, is the fact that you have to have very easy contact points associated with all the content, whether the content is value added or whether the content's part of a funnel. It needs to be very easy to say, okay, I'm ready to contact. How do I do that? Because people will contact you at various points of their tour through your website or their review of the content on your site. This includes unique phone numbers so you can track them from the website, and various methods for contacting you, because not everybody picks up the phone, not everybody sends email.
Not everybody does live chat.
That's right, not everybody does, or send in a contact form or anything like that. So you need to have all the options available. And when we do market research and user testing, people tell us, I like the phone. Oh, no, I'll send an email. Oh, I will complete a form if it's like this. So you hear all these things. You've got to have that availability through your site to get people to convert.
So going back to number 1, drawing qualified traffic to the website, what's the best way to do that? Obviously, we have millions and millions of users on the internet. How do you get the exact traffic you want to your website?
Well, you got to kind of get into the head of your customers. Every company has an offering that solves a problem of a particular kind of person. So understanding really what solutions you're solving and for whom is the best way to begin. And from there, you would make sure that the theme of your website and the search engine findability of your website was revolving around that theme. That right off the bat will be a good start.
And you got to think offline as well. So obviously search engines come to mind immediately, targeting the right keywords. But then you've got to think about the offline marketing that's going to drive people in, direct mail campaigns or billboards or advertising, anything like that. The key thing is that when people come to your website, it's the right kind of traffic. Probably one of the biggest mistakes made in online advertising is people going after too broad a marketplace in their keyword research or in their paid program. You really want to focus on that niche level of keywords that apply the best to your business.
Well, we talked about loading content and then a compelling offer. Let's talk about the offers because there's a lot of times that somebody will go on the website, and I know personally I've seen a lot of things. You can go to a website and they say, well, if you sign up now for our newsletter, we'll give you this action packed 7 steps on how to have great sales.
Yeah, the whole idea of enticing someone to become a sales lead for you by giving away something or by giving a teaser, it really depends again strategically on why you're doing that. As a rule of thumb, I would recommend that you give the information away. You don't put any restrictions on the information. If it's free anyway, give it away, because the last thing you want to do is generate a bunch of leads from people that are looking for free information. How can you make money from people that are looking for free information? They're not going to pay for your services.
And
But
people on the web are naturally suspicious, so they think you're trying to trick them into becoming a sales lead so you can bother them. Everybody's thinking that way. So the easiest
that's right.
way
And, yeah,
is,
and people that want something for free aren't going to be so concerned about that because they want the stuff.
yeah, if you have some compelling reason to send them something in the mail, like if it's a DVD or a CD, that's great because the user knows and the seller knows that this is the best way for us to get this to you.
Yeah,
Well,
and someone who if someone who wants to keep their identity secret on the web, and that's what the web is. It's a one-way medium that people don't have to give their identity away to get information. So why make them do that? They'll contact you then based on, and this is important, on the value that your information brings to them.
I think you just make them mad when you make them give up a lead to look at your newsletter.
Well, here would be, I guess, a good idea, or not a good idea, but something I ran across today was I was talking with a public relations firm, and they have tons of information on their website, tons of articles, how to get free PR, how to get placement in media, all of these things, just wonderful information. But then they do ask for you to sign up on their newsletter. Here's the catch. On their newsletter, it's every other day, and they give you one tip, really short paragraph on how to utilize the media. However, when you sign up, they will send you a CD with additional information on it. So if you need above and beyond, it's another way to go. For me, it's a fit. I'm actually looking at utilizing their services. So I didn't feel abused as a unique visitor.
And they're giving you some information. Is it, as a rule of thumb, think of it this way: the value of the information on the website is so good that generates leads for us. We don't have to hide behind anything. We don't have to make you jump through hoops to give you that information. We give you the information because we know that you're a qualified visitor, and then when you read what we have to offer, you're going to contact us. And then unless you have a business model that has more of a shotgun approach and you do want lots of quantity and lots of people to come in, then you might try the free approach and different strategies.
But I think I have to agree with you because that was actually the first website that I've been to that has that approach that actually worked for me.
Yeah.
Any other time for them to sign up to get this information, I don't really care unless the premium is a white paper that I could use, that I see there's some value in.
And in that example, the email is the perfect way. You kind of wanted to establish a relationship with that information, and they gave you a very low risk way to do it, and you're getting value out of it, and they'll start sending you offers, and you probably have a natural inclination to be interested in their products. So
yeah, and the beauty of the web, and we've seen this, Dennis, many times with clients, is test different approaches and look at the results. Look at your conversion rates, run the numbers, and talk to your salespeople and say, what kind of leads are coming in? Tell us about, give us a profile of the last 10 or 15 leads that came in. And from there, you can tweak and find what's going to be most effective.
I know you were talking about easy to find contact points with unique phone numbers, and you mentioned with unique phone numbers is definitely an interesting way to go, especially when you're marketing. You say for the website, here's the phone number, so you can actually qualify the leads without having your prospect feel that they're being qualified.
Absolutely.
Because that number comes in, it rings on that particular line, you know that came from the web.
It's a web-based. You want to do everything you can to make sure you know where the lead came from. Now, what's interesting is Dennis and I have been working in real estate markets recently, and we did market research with people looking for new homes, and that's a very tough lead to try to track because they take lots of different paths, and it's not usually a path of conversion on the site. It's usually talking to a realtor off the site, or just driving out and looking at the home. So they go to the website, get all excited about the home. You have no idea what kind of interest you're generating. And so we're working with our clients, to try to get a handle on how do you track this person and their end result. And so we're doing things like maybe giving them a coupon for a Starbucks coffee or something, so that when they come in, we can say, hey, they were on the website. Look at this. All this was generated because of our web marketing activities.
The days of tracking your website ROI entirely based on the success of form submissions are over. Half
That's
the people
true.
we talk to initiate contact with a phone or an email, and it's amazing how many people on their websites don't even have special emails that they can track.
Yeah, and especially emails, phone numbers, and the idea that all the different touch points for people, the consumer or your potential client, they don't really care. They're trying to solve their problem, and they're going to jump around to get that done.
There's something interesting you talked about with like emails or specific emails that are on the website. Something that I came across yesterday was the fact that, and it was another conversation I was having about websites and email, that there's a perception out there that if it says, for more information, email us at info@www whatever your site is.com. You feel if you click that and send an email to info, it's going into the black hole.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who's going to get back with you. Or if it goes to sales, you think instantly, some guy from sales is going to call me.
Well, and
And
it's
it's, I'm going to keep trying until you buy or die.
and it's so common for no one to ever get back with you. I mean, they do literally go into a black hole because many companies don't have a system in place to follow up on those leads, or in the past, so many of those leads have been bogus or unqualified that they've given up. So it's kind of, I mean, you really have to have this process thought out, and you have to make it work by being strategic, and
It's
thinking through those
interesting
details.
in that last round of user testing we had. People were really violently opposed to filling out forms, and they thought the reason was that they'd be getting spam. And we asked the same people, "Would you send an email?" And they said sure, and had no fear at all of receiving a spam by giving up their email address via a regular email. But they had a lot of fear regarding filling out the form. And in both cases, they're sending their email address, but totally different perception.
Absolutely, and the one point too that we don't want to leave out is this whole idea of a sales funnel on a website. When a salesperson goes out and starts selling, good salespeople have a process that they work through to get to a close. Website has to do the same thing. And in the real estate area, what we found very, very strongly is that photos of the property are the sales funnels. And so effective photos that show the property, they get people excited, that push hot buttons, that touch the kind of branding they're looking for in a home, let's say, for example. That moves people to contact the company or to action. It's the same thing in any business. Now, in a lot of businesses, service businesses in particular, the kind of content that moves people to action is just going to be the written word. And in fact, we have a client we're working with who is developing a new website, and they're in the whole hiring and recruiting business. They're hiring consultants. And so we came up with content for their homepage that is sales funnel oriented content. And I'll give you a couple examples. I can't find enough good people. Help me define this job. Interviewing to find the right person. That type of content is hot button content. So someone that comes to this site is having those problems, and they read on the site, that's what I'm doing. Help me. How much should I pay people? I need to know that. Click. Now they're in the sales funnel process for this company. The next click then is going to give them more detail on that hot button, and then contact us and we can help you solve this problem. That's how you generate leads through a sales funnel on a site.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you were talking about, did you have an idea of percentages of how many people chose to use the phone as opposed to going through email?
In this case, since it was a local company, more than half were not going to use the website to initiate contact.
I find personally myself, I'd rather pick up the phone because it's much easier for me to talk to somebody and ask the questions and have a conversation, whether it's appropriate for me. it takes me 5 minutes to construct an email.
Well,
So-
it's going to vary by industry. I mean, we've done user testing across different industries, and it depends on the industry. But I think as a rule of thumb, you know that enough people will use the different types of contact points that you have to have them readily available. It's not like you can ignore one because nobody uses it. No, you have to have them all available: phone number, email, form, even maybe live chat if that's what the business needs.
So would you say, just to go back on the website thing, and just for your opinion, I'd like Dennis, you, and Tom, you as well. As far as the email is concerned, would you suggest having somebody for a contact us, instead of it being info or sales, have somebody's name,
Absolutely.
like Bill at yourcompany.com?
Oh, I think that's a good idea.
If you
Yeah.
say sales at yourcompany.com, you might as well say, please don't contact us, because they're all fearful of being
Info or
harassed.
sales.
But if
yeah.
you know somebody who's going to call you, if it's Bill who's calling you back, why not send the email to Bill? So I'm sending an email to Bill at your company. I'm expecting Bill to contact me back.
Yeah, and you can do both. You can do both. If you look at intuitivewebsites.com, you can email me directly, or you can email a sales department directly. And actually, it's a variety, but a lot of people do email me directly.
I think one thing we need to include in this conversation is the majority of the people who are visiting your website are in a research phase. They're not in an action phase yet. They're just looking around at that point. And to make your website sticky for them is a really important goal, because you want those researchers coming back and not forgetting about you.
You want them to bookmark your site as
Bookmark your site, or have a real strong identity, just ways that they can know you're a player in this area where they were looking for information.
Is that, talking about bookmarking, is that something that should be done, that companies should be looking at that? Like, click here to bookmark this site. I know sometimes you can have some programming language to go in there, whether it's JavaScript or something like that will add it automatically into your bookmarks. Would you suggest having something like that on a page?
That used to be popular, but I think fewer and fewer people are doing that, because for me personally, I only bookmark the stuff that I really return to every single day.
Right, I would agree with that. Once again, it comes back to the content on the site. Make your content so valuable that they bookmark you. Like that, the hiring site or the real estate website. The information there is so good that people bookmark you because they want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, looking at the sales funnel process, you talked about navigation and really kind of going down and bringing them through the process. So at the end, it generates a phone call. So where the end user says, "Hey, I'm gonna call." What other ways can somebody look at as far as being able to convert users into customers?
I'd say make it really clear what you do. That's job number one. And most of the websites we look at, you can't even tell what the company does. So if you can't figure out what the company does, there's no way you're going to link it to a solution to a problem that you're having.
Yeah.
And the second thing is make it super obvious how they can engage with you. A lot of websites make the mistake of doing that on a single page. You have to put those obvious paths to conversions linked to benefits and solutions on every single page, so it's super obvious.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. Avoid the generic content. If your content can be removed from your site and put on any other website, it's not the kind of content you want. And I'm talking about things like the industry's best solutions, or providing exceptional service and quality.
Well, exceptional service is standard.
Get in. That's right. Get in, and you see that on so many sites. Get into exactly what it is you do, helping you hire the right people, bringing you a high quality of living with a new home in Colorado Springs. Get specific to what it is you're providing.
In bullets, not in paragraph-styled text. People will
people
skim right
scan
past it.
Well,
I wanted to just mention also that you want to have a tracking mechanism with either a ClickTracks program or Google Analytics, so that you can track your sales funnel and you can measure conversions on the different things, and see how many people visited a page with a certain phone number and how many people called. All of that's measurable.
now, what conversion rates can somebody expect from the web?
Well, we see a variety of conversion rates, and looking at a lot of numbers on website stats. If you start to see 1% to 2%, you're doing okay. If you start to see 3%, then you're doing well. That would be a good target to shoot for. Anything up around 4 or 5%, that's exceptional. You're doing something really, really good.
So you would have to agree then, direct mail and web is probably at the same type of conversion rates?
I think the web should be a little bit higher. And when I talk conversion rate, I'm thinking about a specific page. okay, or a specific product or something. If you're just looking at visitors to the home page, then it's probably
No,
not
no,
gonna
no.
be the
I'm
same.
talking resulting in some type of sale because I think direct marketing is around 1 to 2%, something like that is
Yeah,
what
I would
direct marketing
I
is.
would see I think the web should be a little bit better because those people chose to come see you, whereas direct mail, you're dumping it at their doorstep. So
Okay. Well, do we have anything else that you can add? Well, as our listeners know that we end each podcast with an action item. So, Tom, what are the key action items for our listeners?
now we've got a few, and this is important because these action items will literally make you money by generating leads. Number one is take some of the ideas we've brought here to the table and test them. Don't assume that one way is the way to go. Test different ideas for a few days until you have significant numbers of visitors and see what works. Look at your site and develop what you think should be an ideal path to conversion. What pages do you want people to visit? What do you want them to look at and read? And then how do you want them to contact you? So set up an ideal path to conversion and measure that. Review what happens after a lead comes in through the site, because this is really this is where the money's to be made. I mean, you can generate the leads, but what happens after they come in? What does the sales team do with them? Work with the sales team so they understand what a web lead is and how the whole process works. There's a lot of sales teams out there that think web leads aren't that important. It's a lot of bogus leads.
And encourage them to follow up on web leads immediately. A lot of web leads get followed up a week later, and it's just too late. They should.
That's right. Absolutely. People on a website because they want to see results, and
Well, they want immediate gratification because the web is on 24/7.
We work with companies who contact them while they are still sitting at their computer. They got it set up so they can contact them right there.
that's a good way to go, actually. Use unique phone numbers and other touch points for the website so you know they came from that page. And develop a stay in touch program with folks, because a lot of people will come to your site and they may not be ready to buy the car or buy the house, but they do want to stay in touch. So make it very easy for them to sign up for your email program and make sure that they can see that they're not going to be spammed, that it's private use of this company only to stay in touch. And then finally, watch your stats weekly or monthly. And I would actually, encourage people listening to this podcast to set up either a weekly or a monthly meeting with the sole purpose of measuring conversions on the website, measuring the leads that came in, looking at all the processes, running the numbers, and looking at how the salespeople are handling the leads.
And I'd like to add one. In addition to the email program, which is just a low-level way to create relationships on your website, there's lots of other low-risk ways that add value to the visitor and create relationships on your website. Free webinars, great. A demo if you have a software product, and the email newsletters.
And we're talking email programs, something along the lines of like Constant Contact, something where you can dump all of your leads in there and generate a mass email, if you will, to all those people or whatever they've chosen, whether it's the email once a month email or something to that effect.
Absolutely. And we have a podcast on email marketing. So
go back and listen.
That's right. Number 12.
Well, this has been the Intuitive Websites Internet Marketing Podcast. For more information and to see all the available podcasts and much more, visit intuitivewebsites.com.